the opportunity is for people to wake up, then I salute you, because you're getting it. The point, that's the point. So I really want to share with you some insights into health and well-being from a spiritual perspective. So what you're looking at now on the screen is a bar chart. The red arrow points to the one that is the Q-link pendant. The impact on well-being is just an arbitrary scale on the left-hand side that allows us to compare the Q-link to other forms of healing. I'm going to share with you now the 10, there's actually 11, but not all of them you can do yourself, but you can still benefit from all of them, potentially, and I'll go into it. So one thing we've talked about in the past is intention. Having an intention for a positive outcome, or having an intention for well-being. So where does intention sit within this? So intention is a little bit less in its impact than wearing a Q-link, and that surprised me. There is a reason for this, and what I'm going to hopefully do as we go through each one is I'm going to try and break it down a bit and explain to you why it might not work so well, or what you have to do to get it to work better. But if we take intention, for example, so say going back to 2001 when my kidneys weren't so great, I said, right, I need to do something about this, and I understand enough about intention, so I'm going to sit in stillness and have the intention to be healthier and for my kidneys to be strong. So I would say my kidneys, my kidneys get stronger, my kidneys get stronger, or something like that. Well, that's going to have an effect. Yeah, that graph is showing us that it's having some kind of an effect. It's just not having as much of an effect as wearing a Q-link pendant. Now, for this entire graph that I'm going to share with you, one of my usual caveats is in place, which is I'm referring to good spiritual people here. I'm not referring to people who are practitioners of dark magic, people who are deliberately choosing a path in life that is evil and dark. Their energy is so out of whack with what is good that a lot of what I'm talking about could not even be applied to them. So this is talking about good old-fashioned, just good human beings, which means full of spiritual potential, good people. Okay, so intention is a good thing, but it's not going to be as strong as a Q-link pendant. Interesting. So the next one is positivity. Now, generally just being positive and not falling into negativity, so not reacting negatively when things don't go your way, not being pessimistic, so not even in response. So I'm not just talking about when you're directly focused on your health and well-being. I'm talking about your general level, your vibe throughout life. So someone who is positive and seeking to be positive will generally have quite a strong well-being, or their positivity will impact on their well-being in a positive way. So this is why they talk about like laughter is the greatest medicine, and people who go into hospital and they're full of doom and gloom and whatnot tend to not heal very quickly and tend to actually just not do so well. Whereas people that go in with I intend to beat this, I am going to live, I'm going to, and hold themselves and carry themselves with a certain positive grace, have a much better healing and health and well-being outcome than people who react negatively. And we all know people like this who, when they get hurt or when something goes wrong, they just fall apart and they fall into a negative pit and they just drag everyone down, but they also drag themselves down. What I'm saying is if you can maintain positivity, you don't drag yourself down, you don't drag other people down, and it actually just that maintaining positivity itself is curative. Okay, so you've probably guessed by now that these are going to go up. So the next thing that I looked at is what's the impact of doing basic breath meditation. Now, I've talked at length about meditation, and those who know me know that I've been a meditation teacher since the late 90s, and I started meditating when I was 7, very early 80s. Been doing it a while, but it may surprise a lot of people that I don't advocate meditation anymore. Fortunately, to be spiritual doesn't require meditation. Meditation is simply a facet or an option. And I talk about that a lot in other videos and stuff, so I can share links to that. But the point here is, if someone were to do breath meditation, what impact would it have on a health and well-being perspective? And it is higher than the previous ones that we've mentioned. So sitting down and doing breath meditation would potentially have about 10% more of an impact than a Q-link pendant. Now, all of these, by the way, I must make it very, very clear. When I'm getting this information, there were certain criteria that I put in place. And so this is in the absence of negative interference, assuming that it is a good spiritual person, okay? So all of these are like, if the person did this in a vacuum of external influences and forces. And so, yeah, breath meditation, if there wasn't that negative external forces, then simply sitting down and doing breath meditation would be quite curative, cathartic, and good for your well-being. And so let's see what's next. Self-love. This is you sitting in a state of being more neutral and loving, and just loving yourself, accepting yourself, having intention to just fill yourself with love. And one of the early articles I wrote many, many years ago was about this, and basically, before you can love others, you first of all need to love yourself. But there is a deeper aspect to it. So understanding a bit more about what love is, and I did a whole series of videos on love, and that in order to receive love, you need to be open to love, and if you're not able to love yourself, then you're not able to be loved, because you will block love. So there's a lot more to it, but it fundamentally comes down to acceptance and having the intention. So in other words, if you just accept yourself, but it's passive, unconscious, then it doesn't really shift anything. But if you're able to have that powerful intention, I accept myself and I love myself, and literally to love yourself like it's an action. Now, one of the ways that people get this completely wrong is they expect to feel something. Love is not a feeling. To feel something, you need to be located very much in your body and in your emotions, and love is much higher than that. There needs to be a certain level of acceptance and trust. But basically, if you can sit there and just, in fact, let's do it now. Let's all do it now together. So wherever you are right now, you don't have to close your eyes or anything, but just listen to my voice. And we'll do this together. So just take a nice kind of relaxing breath. But if you're listening, driving a car or anything like that, just keep your focus on what you're doing, but just listen at the same time to this, and just take a nice deep breath. Keep your eyes open, and just repeat what I say to yourself. I accept you. As in, you are saying that to yourself. I accept you. I love you. And the interesting thing is, if you notice any resistance or any uncomfortableness or any reaction other than just melting, anything that feels like an edge, take a deeper breath and just let that edge dissolve. And just say to yourself again, I love you. And we're all in this together, by the way. So look, if you're joining me for this live show, or if you're listening again or watching again, I love you. Thank you for being here with us at this time. If we're not doing this every day, why aren't we doing this every day? Bringing it back, self-love is looking at this, close to twice as powerful as intention alone. And the next one, self-blessing. Now, believe it or not, we quite often say bless you to other people. How often do we bless ourselves? Now, again, look, when we're talking about self-love and self-blessing, I know the temptation is that someone who's perhaps not as spiritually mature might look at what I'm saying and go, isn't this just ego? Who do you think you are, that you're loving yourself and blessing yourself? No. If you're sitting in a place of humility, if you're sitting in a place of gratitude, someone earlier said, think it was Marigold, said, one of the things, there you go, they said, positive food and exercise and acknowledging that all that is good comes from God, expressing gratitude. Blessings come from God. Love comes from God. So you're a good person, and all that is good comes from God, and God bestows blessings and love upon that which is good. After all, God created it. So acknowledging that, then, it's actually a beautiful act to say to yourself, I love you, and to be neutral enough and humble enough to say, and I bless you. So I say it now, and say it with me. I bless myself, and I'm grateful. And since you're joining me in this live show, or listening again, or watching again, then I also say, I bless you. And the significance of that will become more clear in a moment. So if we go back to this, after self-blessing, the next most powerful thing that you can do is self-healing. And by now, you probably realise that what this means is to say, I heal myself. Now you could take it further and you could say, I acknowledge that all that is good comes from God, and Jesus, who is God, showed us the way and demonstrated healing on a level that has never been known before or since. So all that is good, including healing, comes from God, and therefore I'm grateful and I welcome that healing and I heal myself. And the humility is to know that it doesn't come it doesn't come from you, it comes through you. Okay, so hopefully what we're starting to realize as we look at these is that humility underpins so much of what I'm talking about here. If you're being in your ego, if you're full of yourself, if you think you're special and you're trying to do any of this, self-love, self-blessing, self-healing work, nothing's going to be happening. And in the description I posted on, I think it was on X or on Facebook earlier, I said, look, I'm going to be talking about this healing stuff. And on one of them I said, but not everyone can do this. People that are too much in their ego won't be able to do any of this work, because without humility and gratitude, then there's no space, there's no stillness, there's no openness to these things. And if you're unfamiliar with some of the stuff I've talked about in the past, then I'd definitely look into the 6 virtues. Humility is the first amongst them, and it's these different qualities of character that help us to be a lot more spiritual. And obviously we're talking very much about spiritual healing here, but it touches on all aspects of our spiritual life. And hopefully by now what you're realizing is that when I say spiritual life, I mean life, because there is no difference. It's just a question of whether we're awake and present or whether we're asleep. So let's look at the next one. So affirmations. Wow. So right at the start we started with intentions, and quite often people get intentions and affirmations mixed up. So affirmations are affirming something in the present, whereas intentions are effectively saying what you want for the future. So because spirituality is about being present in the here and now, then affirmations work much more powerfully than intentions. So the affirmation, going back to the example that I shared earlier, would be, my kidneys are good. Just matter of fact. I am well. I am healed. I have abundant well-being and healing potential. Whatever comes to you, it's about you and what you need. And again, from that place of humility, then you hopefully will be more able to have the right kind of affirmations. And I think I did actually, there's an article, I'll put a link to affirmations, and I share some insights into how to get affirmations right, because a lot of people get affirmations wrong and they actually compound the problem rather than introduce a solution state. So it's very worthwhile knowing that. And there's a really nice comment in the chat, actually. Hen74 has just shared a very powerful exercise. And Marigold Zero very kindly has said, highly recommend Mark's book, The Six Virtues. And Millie2772 has said, what about prayer? Well, that's a good question. So let's see what comes up next. So after affirmation, we have, if I click the right one, so barefoot. So this one really surprised me how profound that is. And by this, I mean going into the garden or just out onto the street, or, you know, connecting with nature with bare feet just for 10 minutes in the morning. So even like earlier, I had to go out and get something from one of my vehicles, and it's about 1 degree out there. But I had bare feet, and I had no qualms about going out in the cold barefoot. I try and take any opportunity to walk around barefoot, outdoors, indoors. I used to do barefoot walking when bless him, I miss him, when I had my dog. And we'd walk out into the fields, and then when we're out and it was just nice soft ground underfoot, I'd take off my shoes or whatever my trainers, whatever I was wearing, and I'd walk slowly barefoot, paying attention to every foot placement. And it just felt amazing. The reason why it has such an impact is because it's not particularly spiritual, but so much of the malaise of our physical existence is physical problems caused by not being properly grounded. So walking around with rubber-soled shoes all day long, sleeping on a bed that's above the ground. You know, if you think about it, people can go the entire day and never actually connect to the earth. And what tends to happen is that we're losing electrons and we're picking up a bit of a positive charge. And this, I might have got that the wrong way around, but it doesn't really matter. Our charge is getting off kilter. And when we ground and connect to the floor with bare feet or with bare hands or both, then it's like all the electrons rush in and it changes our body's charge, and that's going to have a kind of a molecular level change. What this is saying is that because people are so physically out of kilt because of electromagnetic radiation, because of the wrong kind of lighting, too much blue light, not enough red light, too much time indoors, not enough time outdoors, too much insulation and not enough contact with the floor, the ground, the earth, Mother Nature, then just walking barefoot for 10 minutes a day can have such a profound effect on your well-being. And so I was quite surprised how high that one's ranked. And so I definitely try and go barefoot as often as you can, is a take home from that one. So blessed by other. Now, this is one you can't do. But I blessed you all earlier when I looked down the camera and I said, because you're here, bless you. You couldn't ask for that. A true blessing isn't asked for, it's not requested. It comes with sincerity, and sincerity has to run through the core of all of these activities and all of these things that we can do spiritually to become healthier. If there isn't sincerity, which is another way of saying if there isn't humility, gratitude, and all the other good qualities of character, then if there's, for example, if there's a sense of entitlement or specialness about you, or you think because you're doing these things you're special, anything like that, it's not going to have an effect. So if someone blesses you and they do it sincerely, that's profound. And one of the simplest ways of understanding a blessing is that's that person motivated by love, appealing to God to help you. So when you put it like that, it's obviously going to have quite a profound effect. Prayer is quite significantly a jump up from even being blessed by another. This means prayer from a place of humility, gratitude, all of those qualities, sincerity, etc. As you can see, this is going up this graph each time, so the next one is probably going to be even more important. So is there anything more powerful than prayer, is the question. And the answer is yes, something that is massively higher. And because in the little picture of me in the bottom corner of the screen overlaps that, then you can't see what it is. It's state. I don't mean which state in America you live in, I mean the state you are in. And this is different from positivity. This is your spiritual state. So if you took the sum of all the different qualities of character that are good, and the expression of all of the qualities of goodness that a person, a good, you, me, all us good old human beings can do, then the more you are coming from that place, the more you are in state, spiritually speaking. So let me break this down and codify it. So if you stayed this far into this live show, then now you're getting the gems. Okay, this is what can really, really help, because when you look at that graph, look how much more of an impact being in state has on your well-being. It's like 3 times as much as a Q-link pendant, probably a bit more actually. It's the same as having a Q-link pendant, intention, positivity, and self-love. Well, almost, it's like cumulatively that much more profound. So here's some of the words that when you are these things, it's an indication that you're being more in state. But one of them is the most important, and I'll leave that one till the end, okay? So neutrality. And we've talked a lot about this. There's some very good discussions in previous episodes about neutrality and the right way of doing it as opposed to the cold, non-spiritual way of doing it. So I'll put links there. But fundamentally, so if you're being neutral, present, graceful, compassionate, non-judgmental, accepting, if you've got faith in God, the source, that which is the cause of all that is good, gratitude towards Jesus. And again, remember right at the start I said we're not talking about religion. I'm talking about something much more profound, and Jesus is real. Okay? And I talk a lot in other episodes, so again, maybe I'm just introducing things if you're new to this that you haven't encountered before. Just go with it. Loving. So all of these words I'm sharing are like different pillars that together support your state of spirituality. And that's not an exhaustive list. But the most important one is coming from the heart, not from the head. So I'm talking to you right now. And obviously, when I've got like the thing on the screen, it's very kind of, oh, look, there's a picture, and we can get drawn into the information, and we're comparing and contrasting different things. But when I talk about coming from the heart, I mean, take everything that we've just learned, all of these different things, and then let it go. Sometimes you give people a little bit of information and it just triggers a cascade of questions. That's where they're at, so there's no criticism, but where they're not is sitting in their state. Because if they're in their state, that information will be transformed into kind of like wisdom, understanding. It's not just about the information. You can transcend the information. So for example, if I say to you, come from your heart, the brain, the head will try and figure out what exactly does he mean? Is this some kind of anatomical thing? Does this mean visualize? Does this mean hold my breath and focus on my heart? Does this mean affirm? Just do it. That's what it means. Because spirituality in the state is a being thing. It's not a thinking thing. Okay? So if we can take the information and then put it down, and it's like, all right, thanks, you pointed me in the right direction. I appreciate that, Mark, but now I need to do it. Then I salute you, because you're getting it. The point, that's the point, is to take this information. And so when we're in state, that's the true protection, that's the true buffer. But it means that if you stay in the state of neutrality, in the state, literally the spiritual state, the more you're in that state, the less these things affect you, and the quicker you can recover from them or ameliorate against them. But when you drop into the opposite of all of these things, so we could go through this list and say, well, what's the opposite of intention? Negative intention. Positivity, negativity. Breath meditation, being hyper. So the opposite would be, so breath meditation is nice and calm, with being hyper and distracted. Self-love, self-loathing would be the opposite. Self-blessing would be self-cursing. How many people curse themselves? They say things about themselves that are terrible. Self-healing would be self-harming. How many people harm themselves? They know that that food is bad for them. They know that that cigarette is bad for them. They know that that drink is bad for them. They know that those activities are bad for them. They know that not getting enough sleep is bad for them. They know, in other words, and they still do it because it's literally self-harming. Affirmation, well, the opposite would be negative affirmations, affirming the problem, not affirming the solution. Barefoot, well, the opposite would be keeping your shoes on all the time, detaching yourself from nature, never going outside, living in a virtual reality environment. Blessed by others. Well, if you're not a loving person, then it's very unlikely that anyone is going to send love your way or send blessings your way. So the opposite of that would be to be damned by others or cursed by others. Prayer, the opposite of that would be doing black magic, appealing to in the wrong direction to the forces of darkness, in which case none of this stuff is going to work for you. And the opposite of state would be completely asleep, distracted, chaotic, confused, not present, basically. And I'd say that I don't say this with any judgment whatsoever, but completely absorbed in life, which is how most people are. And so the opportunity, I'm not saying it in a criticizing way, the opportunity is for people to wake up. It's as simple as that. Obviously I could say more, but as I've just said, this isn't an intellectual journey. It's enough to be told that the opportunity is there to wake up. If there's any spiritual potential in a person and they hear that, something inside them will be going, listen, wake up, And we've all been there. So we're not sitting on our ivory towers saying, oh, if you're not awake enough, or it's not like that at all. We're all in this together. If one of us rises up, then all of us who are good rise up a little bit more. If one of us just becomes like, if someone's 2% in state and they go to 3%, do you realise that that's a 50% improvement? It may not sound like much, but it's massive. And most people are not there's no spiritual state there at all. There's just reacting to life and completely enthralled by the thoughts in their heads. And a lot of people, are under the domain of their ego. And I don't mean that in a standing up going, look at me, look at me, look at me. But there's many facets to ego, but it's basically self-referential as opposed to seeking outwards, seeking upwards. Some powerful stuff there. And there's one last thing I wanted to share with you on this is that these are cumulative. So, well, there's two more. There's another thing I want to share about why they don't always work. But basically, it's not a case of pick one and do it. It's a case of do all of them. If you do affirmations and self-love, it doesn't stop at the level of affirmations. It's like they stack on top of each other, and the overall impact is greater. But it's not a direct. So say self-love is worth 6 points and affirmations are worth 7 points, then it doesn't add up to 13 points. It would be about 9 points, about 10 points maybe. In other words, it's not a direct proportional thing, but these things do stack up. If you did all of them, then it would be about 2 to 2.5 times the effect of prayer. Forget about breath meditation. I just put it in there as a yardstick. Forget about Q-links. As you can see, there's absolutely no point really in using a Q-link pendant because there's much more natural, harmonious ways that actually benefit your soul and your spirit. The outcome could be phenomenal. And this is I'm not saying, and I have done it. I'm saying, and I'm learning, and with this knowledge, I'm also going to seek to put more of this into practice as well. And I'd love it if maybe in a week or 2 or 3 weeks or a month from now, or whenever you're watching this and you put some of these things into practice, you can give me some feedback. But the other thing, very quickly, and I'm aware of time, is why don't these things work? I think this is really useful to know. So I have touched on this, but it comes down to, oddly enough, state. So if you're out of state, then you're less likely to be humble. You're less likely to be coming from your heart. So I would put state first and then use the others as tools in the toolbox, if that makes sense. And state, by the way, it's not an on or off thing. It's not like I am now switching on state. It's how much are you in state at any moment in time. And every time you ask yourself that, you'll become more in state, because you'll notice, oh no, hang on a sec, I'm being a bit judgmental, or I'm being a bit distracted, or I've got carried away with the situation, or I've reacted to something. Let me just take a moment and be present. And it's as simple as that, because doing that, I can feel myself dropping more into state. And then your state will grow the more you use it. There are people that maybe need a bit of a gentle nudge when it comes to their well-being and their health, or maybe they really value this spiritual take on things, where it says, look, we're not talking about medicine, we're not talking about the mainstream stuff, we're talking about stuff that you can do right now that doesn't cost you anything, and you don't need to take anything, put anything in you, or anything like that. If there are people in that position, please do let them know this information, share it with them. And because it's so sad if someone's a good person and they could actually just be given a little bit of guidance and then have a much better outcome. So you now are empowered with this information. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to put it into play in your own life and in the lives of those that you love and care about? Wherever you are right now, God bless you.